Okay guys, I already have a gigantic Gloomspite Git army for my Age of Sigmar collection, but it is all based around the Night Goblins. And I love them, it's all fully done, it's all fully painted. I have no real want to add any more miniatures to it, and I don't want to vary or branch out into any other variants of the goblins for that particular army. So when this box set got sent to me by Games Workshop for review, I was kind of racking my brain as to what I wanted to do with it, if I was going to do anything different, or whether I was just going to make the videos from this box set for you guys to enjoy, or whether I was going to try and figure out how to make it work for me. In the end, I decided to make it work for the old world, because the old world is my fantasy passion right now, and there is an amazing goblin character mounted on wolf called Kiknik Toofsnatcha, and I think the goblin boss in this set will be a beautiful substitute for that. So I'm going to get it built up, put on a square base, paint it up, and add it into my old world collection. So that's what we're going to do in today's video. Before I get into it though, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my active patrons and everyone out there that supports Mediocre Hobbies in the myriad of different ways it is possible to do so. Of course, Patreon is the most important one. That keeps the lights on and cameras rolling. So all you guys, an extra special thank you. If you want to get involved with that yourselves, there's links down in the description below. You get access to a private Discord server. You can participate in all different events and stuff that we host over there. We did a community showcase last night on stream. That was for all the Discord members. And then of course, you get an extra video every single week just for you guys. So if those sound like interesting things, then like I said, check it out below. All right, without further ado, let's dive in and get this guy built and painted. So one of the things that I used to be quite prevalent with when it came to playing in games of Warhammer Fantasy, which is now Warhammer the Old World, is trying to make kind of optimized lists. I tried to have a lot of fun, but I really did try and like do the best I could when I played games. And of course that's bled across to me now playing the Old World. It's not really my style of playing any game anymore. So one of the things I do really want to do is I want to pick up some of the specific army lists that exist inside of the Arcane Journals, which usually are not very competitive at all. They're just very thematic and very cool, very beautiful looking armies, and then to build and paint them. So this may be the beginning of that, the full mounted orc and goblin army that you can do from the Arcane Journal, and having Kiknik Toofsnatcha as the kind of goblin in charge, and using this amazing model to represent him. So I got the model built. I put him on a base that is basically the equivalent of 2 of the bases he's supposed to be on. Therefore, he'll also act as a slight unit filler for a unit of wolf riders. When he sits in the middle, he'll just displace one of the wolves. I don't think it's a really big deal. Obviously, the bases the wolves are supposed to go on are so tiny. There's no way I could have gotten this awesome beast of a model to fit on it, but I'm okay with that. Then I got it sprayed black and grey seer, and then I started blocking in the base coats with contrast. First thing I did was skeleton horde across the skin, and then aggros dunes across all of the fur. Obviously, I wanted it to be a very pale and pallid color for the wolf, but I did want to differentiate the kind of the tight fur around his face and kind of legs and stuff like that, and then the big thick mane color hair that exists. Very similar, but slightly different, and that's where the skeleton horde and the aggros dunes does play into it. Once these two contrasts were fully dried, it was then time for a very quick dry brush, and all I did was Screaming Skull, a nice large flat dry brush, and I dry brushed up the entire wolf with this. And apart from doing things like the scars and the teeth and the eyes and stuff, the skin of the wolf is now completely done. All it took was 2 contrasts and a quick dry brush, and it's done. And I think it looks really good. Wait until you see it when it's fully dry brushed. But I think the tones definitely work. I think it looks like a really nice, almost like an Arctic wolf, if you will. Maybe not quite as white as Arctic, but you know what I mean. I think it's the idea of when I have an army of wolves, all the other wolves will be like greys, and they'll be browns and blacks and, you know, those kind of colors. And then there'll just be this one big white wolf standing out as the boss, and I really like that. Okay, Gore Grunt of Fur was then brought in for all of the leather straps and the bottom part of the saddle holding the wolf in place. This really did sit really nicely over the skin as well. Gore Grunt of Fur mixed on top of that wolf tone. Like when I was finished applying it, I really did like how it was starting to look. And I was just, you know, starting to find my groove with this model. Although it took a little bit longer than I expected to paint this guy, there's just so much detail. It was very enjoyable, and I was really happy with the final result. Now, there is, of course, an extra bit of this model that I chose not to glue on. And I talked about it in length about what, and the kind of Where I finished up was that it felt very Age of Sigmar as opposed to Old World. Age of Sigmar being extremely high fantasy, very ostentatious, very big and bold, which is beautiful and I love it to bits. But I think for Warhammer the Old World, we can just dial it back a little bit. So the huge big sun wreath plus the two big back banners that come off this model and kind of like overpower and overbalance, I decided to leave it off. And I don't think it takes anything away from the model. I think it sits kind of better into the Warhammer world like this. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Do you know, understand what I mean when I say that? And do you feel the same? That's up to you. Gargak Sewer was then brought in for his like leather curse. I didn't want to go black, didn't want to go brown. Gargak Sewer is kind of in the middle. And it's a really nice color for that. So the next part of the saddle up, the kind of cushiony bit that he's sitting on, plus his curse was all done in that color. And then it was time to decide on the armor color for this model. And for this, I just decided to go for red. It's supposed to be painted red. It looks really good. It's going to make the armor pop. Kind of like the red Gobbo model from old Gorka Morka days. This guy is, well, the red will signify him as a leader and a boss. And maybe more elite units will have more red in them. And then obviously the rest will be more normal colors. He does have quite a nice assortment of red armor panels for the wolf. Obviously he's got his shield, his big armored helmet. And then some nice extra armor on the goblin. So there's actually quite a lot of red armor. This is a well-protected goblin and wolf combo. We jumped back to Skeleton Horde and we did his like stirrups are just bone. And there's also a bunch of extra details like wraps around his ankles, wraps around his wrists, wraps on his weapon, which is just, his weapon is a vicious thing. It's just a really sharp stick, a really sharp rock on a stick. So he swings by and just swings this thing at you and it's just horrible. I can't imagine what it's like being smacked over the head with it. It's fairly brutal and vicious weapon, but yeah, the wraps around that are being used for that. And then of course we jump up to some of the darker colors. We're going into the metallics now. And I decided to go for a really dark metallic. These guys don't have, you know, really high grade steel. They're not polished armor. Nothing like that. So I decided to go for Iron Warrior Steel, which is a really kind of blacky silver color. And I'm going to do all the trim on the armor and all the metallic parts in this entire model with that. There's not that many. But even the sun on the shield, I'm going to leave that color. It looks nice. I think it works. Volupus Pink was then introduced for the wolf's mouth. It'll obviously get all the gums, all the teeth, the tongue, all those bits and pieces. We'll pick out the teeth later on. So just fill the entire mouth with Volupus Pink. And then there's all these awesome gnarly scars. This wolf has obviously been fighting a long time, so he's covered in scars. And this Volupus Pink contrast really does make those scars pop out and jump, obviously with the pallid skin as well, and the nice pink tones. It works really well. I was really glad I decided to do that. Really giving that kind of old wizened wolf look. Silicanum Grey, obviously for the gnarly rock on the end of the stick, and of course the boulders that the wolf is currently perched atop is going to be done in Basilicanum Grey. Now, I don't really go into much detail about what I do with the base because everybody's going to do bases differently. It's kind of up to them what they do. But I just used AK Interactive Dark Earth texture paste. And I gave it a dry brush of Rise of Rust and then a dry brush of Bone. Pretty much all I did, rimmed the base black, and then I'll add some grass tufts at the end. Now, we're going to add Seraphim Sepia to the model. Now, every single part of the model except for the wolf. So don't touch the wolf's fur or anything like that. Just all the armor panels, all the straps, the full wolf rider, so the goblin rider, all of that's going to get hit with Seraphim Sepia. This, of course, helps to keep it all in that kind of like natural tone. It'll set off everything really, really nicely. With that drying, like I said, I'm going to work up the rest of the base. But well, when it's dry, we're now going to start adding some extra like highlight colors. And for the skin, we're going to start with Strachan Green. Now, there is a little bit of skin showing through. Obviously, the goblin's face. If you decide to not give him the helmet, there's a little bit more on show. And then he does have his elbows, his hands, and his knees. A little bit above the knee is actually on show as well. So make sure you find those bits. Get them highlighted with Strachan Green. Then Ogre and Camo. I like putting a little bit of extra effort into skin. I will go for kind of multiple highlights with the skin there. Like it's usually quite an important focal point of specific miniatures or putting all miniatures. So I like to go a couple of coats with them and really make it kind of pop and stand out. There's also something about painting green skin. I really enjoy playing orcs, playing goblins, all those kind of fantasy monsters. The skins and their like faces are so like predominant. It's really easy to pick out all the different details and have a lot of fun with painting them and practicing painting your skin as well. So I will never pass up the opportunity to spend a little bit more time painting an orc face than I should. With his face now looking suitably gnarly and goblin-esque, it's time to start working up some of the other colors across this model. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab Mornfang Brown, and we're going to work up all those leather straps and the saddle and stuff like that. Very simple, one coat highlight. We're not going to go crazy with this. Like where we talk about things like the face being a focal point, when someone picks up a miniature, they will focus in and have a look at the goblin's face. Nobody cares what the leather straps holding the saddle on the model are painted like. So just get a nice neat coat and then ignore it. Don't worry about it too much. It's now time to work up some of the brighter colors across the model. So of course we're going to start with the red. So we're going to go Evil Sun Scarlet and then Wild Rider Red. We're going to count the contrast and the shade as the base coat. And now we're going for mid-tone now and then highlight. Like I said, this is still orc and goblin craftsmanship, so I'm going for like a mottled technique kind of thing. I'm not going for nice smooth coats across the arm panel. You can see that I'm basically stabbing at the armor with the brush. This is of course brightening up the panels, making it look really nice, but it's not, like I said, it doesn't give that like artisan's finished look to the armor. Wild Rider Red was then brought in to do exactly the same thing, but just less. You want to go lighter again, just catch some of the raised points. Create that effect just to make the armor pop a little bit more. That big beautiful red shield with the dark iron or banding around on the sun in the middle, I think looks really cool, and I was really pleased with it. We are now starting to come to the end of painting up this awesome model. Like I said, he was very much a fun project, and obviously getting the army box set, I'm now going to have to try and figure out how to incorporate some of the other models into it. So the chariots obviously are a very easy thing to do. I just need to get a third one. I've got 2 from that box set. I get 1 more, I'll put them on the square of rectangle basis, and I'll use them as a squadron of goblin chariots in the old world. It'll be really nice. As for the 6 double riding wolf orc, like they're really cool models, and I don't think any wolf rider will count. It's like, I don't think that's good enough. So I was tempted to try and make them count as just boar boys. Obviously that will give me a bigger base to play around with, and obviously they'll be more menacing and more intimidating on the tabletop, and seeing as that they're big powerful wolves with 2 goblins on it, I think the kind of power will kind of count as. I'm quite excited to see what 6 of those models all ranked up beside each other will look like, and then like obviously how they will play in a game. I think it'll be really cool. So I do intend to use the entire new Gloomspite Gitz army box for the old world. And if you enjoyed seeing me turn this particular orc into him, and you do want to see more videos on how I'm going to do that with stuff like the chariots, please do let me know in the comments below what you would like to see, when you would like to see it. And I would be more than happy to facilitate more old world videos, because old world is still very much my current passion. It is the game I enjoy playing the most. And any excuse to do more hobby based around that game, I will absolutely jump on. Obviously I added some quite tall grass tufts, and I think that obviously really set the model off as well. And now we have a couple of nice images to give you guys an example of what the final product looks like with this awesome model. My Kiknik Toofsnatcha is finally finished, painted, and ready to lead an entire new orc army into battle in the very near future. Okay guys, and there we have it. The miniature is all finished up. I'm super pleased with the final result. I need to paint up a couple of squads of wolf riders to go alongside him, so boar boys, the chariots, there's a whole host of other things to make this guy's army playable for the old world, but I'm very excited to get stuck in and get that done. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give the video a like, ask me any questions you want in the comments below, and make sure you're subscribed. Those 3 things cost you absolutely nothing, but they make a huge difference to us creators as to how many people get to see our channel and see our videos. So if you got 2 seconds, hit those buttons. Thank you guys so much for sticking around at the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.